the next MonsterVerse Godzilla movie should probably star Honker as Willy the Giant, Dewey as Monstro, Huey as Chernabog, and then Louie as Maleficent. Wouldn't that be so cool? Then Godzilla and Kong can show up. Nah, never mind. That's really stupid. Anyway, welcome to the St. Canard Files, a Darkwing Duck podcast. We're your hosts, Mike Russo and
Tiffany Silver-Braun.
And once again, joining us is Stan. Welcome back once again.
Thanks for having me back again.
And today we are discussing part 3 of Dangerous Currency, which is from Ducktales issue 6, which was published in October 2011. How is everyone doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm fine. Once again, listeners, we're going to jump right into the story. Sometimes we just can't come up with the pre-talk, and it's just easier just to get started, isn't it?
Yep.
So one thing that's noticeable right off the bat here is that the 2 DuckTales issues were the ones that were written by Spector and Brill, and the Darkwing issues were only written by Brill, and the DuckTales issues had art by Silvani and Jose Mazzaroli, but only Silvani did the Darkwing issues. And I'm wondering exactly why that was. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Not sure.
I mean, I do intend, when and if I get a chance to talk to James, to ask him that. But my guess it's probably just a scheduling thing because these issues were coming out. You know, issues 17 and 5 came out one month, and then 18 and 6 came out a second month. So that's a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it was easier to get somebody else to help James with the art on the DuckTales issues and kind of copy his style. Because if you didn't know there was another artist on this issue and issue 5, you'd have no idea. It looks just like Silvani. And that would probably be why this issue and DuckTales issue 5 don't have all those Disney references in the background. But the 2 Darkwing issues do. So that makes sense. Anyway, okay, so jumping into part 3, I'm going to give Stan the reins because in the very first panel, Stan noticed...
Shouldn't we talk about the covers first?
Yeah, we should talk about the covers. Actually, let's back up a moment. 2 covers as usual, cover A and cover B. This is the most egregious example of the covers not matching the story.
Yeah.
So, Tiffany, tell the listeners about what cover A looks like.
Cover A has the money bin, and it's got instead of Scrooge about to jump in, it's got a Magica dispel and kind of a old-timey bathing suit. And you see Glomgold swimming through the money with a super angry face. And we got Steelbeak, and he's surfing on a money wave. We got Quacker Jack in a inner tube, and Megavolt making that face from the beginning of the DuckTales intro where Scrooge is spitting coins out of his mouth.
Yep.
And Liquidator in the bottom right-hand corner.
You can barely see him.
Yeah.
So apparently, and I know we've alluded to this, the story for Dangerous Currency was supposed to be completely different, and these covers were drawn up before the story was changed. Apparently, these characters were all supposed to be in it more, and I guess whatever role Glomgold had was completely cut out, and Steelbeak isn't in this story at all either. It's a cool cover, but it makes no sense.
Yeah.
What about cover B? Stan, would you mind telling everyone what cover B looks like?
So cover B has Magica front and center holding Scrooge's #1 dime with Quacker Jack and Megavolt to either side of her. And the dime is emitting like these rays. And in between most of the rays, you have a bunch of characters. You got Huey, Dewey, and Louie, Darkwing, Gander, or Gladstone, that's his name. Herb and Binky, Donald, Launchpad, Gyro, Gearloose, Lil Bulb, and Doofus Drake.
Yeah.
Goslin and Honker, and Scrooge.
And of course, it goes without saying that Doofus, Gladstone, and the Muddlefoots don't appear in this story.
Nor does Donald.
Yeah.
Well, not in this issue.
No, Donald gets a cameo, as do most of the like tertiary DuckTales characters, but nothing substantial. And the Muddlefoots aren't in this at all.
Yeah.
But again, I really wonder what the original story might have been, that we have the Muddlefoots and Glomgold on this cover art. And I don't believe Magica actually ever gets her hands on the dime either.
I do not remember, but we'll find out for sure next time, because she doesn't in this issue, at least.
No, absolutely not, no. So, getting back to what I was talking about, Stan noticed an inconsistency in the very first panel. So, Stan, what is the inconsistency?
So the last panel of the last part 2, had Honker holding Webby in his giant hands and Dewey holding Gosalyn. This one, it's reversed. Now Honker's holding Gosalyn and Dewey is holding Webby.
Somebody wasn't paying attention.
Nope.
These panels don't hook up.
Not at all.
That's a weird.
I don't see any reason why they would have, passed them off between each other. That just doesn't make sense.
They're playing hot potato with the kids. And this issue starts off without a recap. It just, you open the cover and the action's already started. There's not even an attempt to guide the reader back into the story.
Nope.
I mean, there's a lot going on in this issue, so I guess I just didn't have the room for it. But anyway, Darkwing shows up, rescues Gosalyn and Webby, and his rope snaps that he's swinging on, and Gizmo Duck catches him. So, Tiff, what happens next?
So, Gosalyn asks if it was planned, and he says, maybe, which is actually, I guess, closer to more Darkwing and Gizmo Duck dynamic than the previous one.
Oh, for sure.
And Scrooge decides that they're gonna go to Duckburg instead of going back to Darkwing Tower to figure this all out, because he thinks the tower's compromised. And you see,
I think Scrooge wants nothing to do with St. Canard anymore.
Yeah, he makes it very clear with his dialogue. He's like, I don't want to look at the hole in the wall Megavolt made. I don't even want to say the word Megavolt.
Yeah.
To Scrooge, it's probably a really stupid name.
Then you see Magica and the Phantom Blot talking about their plan, but and then a weird cryptic line of the Phantom Blot asking why he's here.
Maybe it's a meta comment, like, why am I even in this stupid comic?
Why am I here?
Because Magica says they're going to take all the slime and now transport it all the way to Duckburg, which seems like a massive thing to do considering it's all underground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I was the Phantom Blot, I'd be like, why the hell am I even here? So they all go to Gyro's lab. And what bothers me about this issue is that the characters travel to Duckburg, but there are no establishing drawings of the town at all to like just give readers some idea where they are, or even to give longtime fans a sense like, yeah, they're in Duckburg. And it's like, no, there's no drawing of the city. There's no drawing of the money bin. There's no drawing of Gyro's barn. They're just in the barn. And it bothers me because I wish they would have found more room to just let us indulge in Duckburg, and they don't even bother. And that annoys me a lot. Like probably more than it should, but it does.
It's like assuming that you know what it looks like, because there's a whole thing where Darkwing's talking about it basically being like a hole in the wall, like little shack, but like unless you see the outside of it, how do you know? It's like just assuming that you know what it looks like from watching the show, but it doesn't show it.
Yeah, there seems to be a complete disregard about like the DuckTales iconography. I mean, we get to see the towers in Darkwing, we get to see the bridge and all that stuff, but when they go over to Duckburg, there's just no interest in just letting us enjoy that. And then Scrooge pulls out a small vial with ink in it. And Stan, I don't like Darkwing's reaction. Do you?
No, Neither do I. Darkwing's like, what? You old fool, you've doomed us all.
Like, it's a tiny bit of ink in a jar. And Scrooge is responsible. Like, I don't understand Darkwing's reaction unless they want to keep beating us over the head with the fact that these two don't get along.
That's what it seems to be.
I mean, Darkwing's the kind of guy where if Honker's doing an experiment on very experimental fertilizer, he'll take the thing and drink it even though he's been told not to.
Yep.
Like, this shouldn't bother Darkwing. Like, I feel like on the show, Darkwing would have grabbed that after being told it could mutate him into something powerful and put it on himself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, on the show, he would
likely.
have gotten splashed in ink, and he would have turned into a monster, because
For
that's
sure.
how Darkwing Duck works. Anyway, so Tiffany, what happens next?
So Gyro looks at it through the microscope and says it's like something he's never seen. Darkwing pushes him aside and looks at it himself, and you see a bunch of the little splotches of ink, and then they all have eyes that all of a sudden look back at him.
And the ink kind of looks like a duck in a fedora and a cape.
Yeah, only in that
A little bit.
though. That's what I thought too.
I'm starting to wonder where this ink came from. I don't know about the rest of you. I'm getting some red, black, and yellow vibes here. So, meanwhile, this comic is really just making nonsense up. Like, it's totally making up its story as it's going along. It's like, this is Deus Ex Machina, the comic, in which the one antidote to the ink is Mama Crackshell's insults. And we see her outside the barn in tight close-up, so we still don't see what the barn looks like, yelling at Fenton, berating him. And the more she piles onto him, the more the ink turns white and is neutralized.
Gee, a slimy ink-like substance that responds to moods. Where have we seen that before?
Yeah.
For anyone wondering, Ghostbusters 2 has already done that.
Yep. Yep. I like how even though it's for the ink, Gizmo Duck still looks really sad at Mama's insults.
Well, if there's one thing Fenton can't deal with is his mother's insults. You know, conceptually, the idea of Mama Crackshell's insults neutralizing the ink is kind of funny, but it's such a major plot point that I just don't buy it.
Yeah.
If it was first demonstrated on someone else that it was specifically her, I think it would have been better, but it's kind of confusing that she did it to Gizmo Duck first, which makes you think it's because it's someone related to him that he cares about.
You know, considering where the ink comes from, wouldn't it make more sense to be neutralized by, like, positivity and love?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would somebody being nasty, like, create that kind of reaction? Isn't that what the ink would want? Wasn't it breeding hate in One Shot and Cantankerous?
Yep.
So, to be honest, the more I think about it, the more it makes no sense. What also doesn't make sense is this radio report, which, Stan, why doesn't this radio report make any sense?
So it claims that 4 giant monsters, which bear striking resemblance to Scrooge McDuck's triplets and another bespectacled boy, have been unleashed upon Duckburg. Now, the bespectacled boy, yeah, that one kind of makes sense, but how do they get that the Chernabog, Maleficent, and Monstro resemble the triplets? Aside from wearing their hats, there is nothing to tie them to them.
No, they don't look anything like the nephews. So, I mean, who says they're just not wearing their clothes? I mean, I guess they were trying to be funny. I'll give it to them, but
yeah.
So, Tiffany, what happens following that?
So you see them bursting through the bridge, the 3 monstrous triplets, which I have to say, the Monstro one is actually kind of terrifying to me.
Well, Monstro is terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you see that the gang has created a weapon now using Mama's insults to fight these guys. It's like a remote control looking thing that will zap her energy at the nephews.
And we finally get a shot of the shack.
Oh yeah, kind of. It's still kind of in the corner.
It's accurate though. There's a big satellite dish on top, which Gyro did always have up there, but it's like it's all the way off to the side.
Yeah, it's not. It's still not quite an establishing shot.
No, and there's like an inset panel that's super tiny of the 4 monsters attacking Duckburg, but it's so tiny it might as well not even be there.
Yeah. That's very kaiju for sure.
And when they do attack the 4 of them, like, this isn't even a fight. Like, it's 4 panels. They're zapping each of them right in the face, and it's over.
Yep.
Like, so these comics are like so much talk and exposition and nowhere near enough action.
We do get one kind of fun little callback, though. When Scrooge is administering the antidote, it looks like he's using his cane as a pogo stick.
And he absolutely is. But like a real pogo stick. It has like foot bars and an actual pogo at the bottom of it.
That's awesome.
Yep. God, I love that. I love that game.
Yeah, me too. You know what? Can I say something really quick about that?
Sure.
When I was a kid, I used to rent it all the time. I didn't have it for a long time. And I played it and I could only get so far. And I was like, this game is really hard. I just can't seem to get that far in it. So I kept wanting to rent it. And it's because the one that I was renting, it didn't have the booklet in it. So I was playing it over and over and over again without even knowing the pogo jump, which is like the most important move in the whole game. And I like discovered it on accident and was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was playing it without this move the whole time.
Even if you know about it, it's a little tough to master, but once you really figure it out, that game is so much fun.
Also, Moon Theme is one of the best video game themes ever.
I will say the DuckTales game is not that hard. Once you've mastered it, you can blow through that thing in a half an hour if you really want to. But between the exploration element and the replay value and the music, it definitely earns its status as one of the best licensed Nintendo games.
For sure.
Yeah, I can't even tell you how excited I was in that DuckTales 2017 just to get that first little hint of the theme, the moon theme.
And what they did with it to turn it into the lullaby.
Yeah.
Man, that was great. I do miss that show. I wish it had kept going, but you know, it is what it is. So, all right, I'm going to rant again. So the boys are turned back, you know, to themselves, and in the next panel, they're at the money bin. The only way you would know they were in the money bin is if you knew what Scrooge's office looked like.
Yep.
Nobody mentions the money bin. There's no establishing drawing of the money bin. They're just in his office and nobody says where they are, which is really annoying because one of my favorite pieces of DuckTales iconography is the bin. You don't just have the characters be there. You gotta show the thing. Even if it was one panel and it's in the background, you gotta establish that they're going to the bin because it's a major piece of that show's visual identity, basically. And it bothers me they don't even mention it. So yeah, rant over for now. I'll get back to this rant in a minute or two, but... Okay, so we're about to get a huge exposition dump by Gizmo Duck. Who wants to tackle this?
Stan.
All right. So he's talking about how about a year ago, to his memory, though apparently it feels like it happened to him yesterday, he was leaving home when Magica showed up and took him captive.
You know, wait, not to interrupt, we don't even get an establishing shot of the money bin, but we get an establishing drawing of his trailer.
Yeah.
So what happens to Fenton?
He says he says he DVR'd hours of Duckburg's Next Great Window Washer for Mama.
That sounds like something she'd watch.
Yeah.
So what does happen, Stan?
So Fenton wishes he could tell more, and we get a giant Deus Ex Machina of Exposition coming from a projection from the Gizmo suit.
Yeah, because in his flashback, Magica suddenly appears with a magical candle, and she says she needs his accountant because she plans to steal the dime. And she leaves with him, and that's when the projection shows up. And this is the laziest exposition dump I've ever seen.
Yeah, and it makes no sense, because why would Magica put her whole plan in the Gizmo suit? It doesn't make sense, nor does it apparently is only accessible through the slime, which again is kind of another like, huh?
Yeah, it doesn't see. It's a 2-page panel where it goes through her plan. Like I'll do it step by step, super quick. Like step 1 is she's not going to team up with Negaduck again, which she can't do.
Right.
Step 2 is the villainous team up, which has gone absolutely nowhere so far. Step 3 is to discover Scrooge's dummy corporation, Quackworks, which I guess Cinnamon Teal helped her infiltrate because she is a spy.
Right.
Because they show her giving her paperwork. So I guess Cinnamon Teal earned her keep.
Yeah.
And step 4 is to make a base under St. Canard, which leads to step 5 when they discover the ink, which they discover its properties when it gets all over Poe and turns him into a monster.
Yep.
And then step 6 is to bring the Phantom Blot along, who tells her he's not interested, and it shows a blank panel saying use plan B to recruit him. It's a success, a tip-top secret. You know what this reminds me of, guys? And this is a little divergent, but I'll do it anyway. That South Park episode where the underpants gnomes steal your underwear, and they have a three-step plan. Step 1, collect underpants. Step 2, step 3 is profit. And they don't know what step 2 is. So here is like, we don't know how she got the Phantom Blot to help her. I don't even know if they explain it. And then step 7 is to kidnap Fenton, and then step 8 is to take over St. Canard.
Now, I will mention, apparently it says that she kidnapped him from time itself, so I'm assuming she went back in time to before, the events of the first issue of Darkwing to kidnap him, which is why the Gizmo suit didn't have him with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And at least her grabbing Fenton makes sense because nobody would be able to authenticate that dime as well as his accountant.
Right. So why would she need the dime at this point? She's got ultimate power from this slime.
Yeah.
No, another question, why would she even bother with St. Canard if it's the dime she wants?
True.
Yeah. She just wants to have a city, I guess. That's like her side mission.
Or maybe to recruit the villains to help her?
Possibly.
So Scrooge gets on his phone and calls Agent 44 again, who we still don't see in this issue. And then Launchpad makes this really cryptic comment. He says, all of them, ... with all that slime, ... Is this it? What does that mean?
What does that mean?
And then you have Darkwing looking around in a panel with no dialogue. He looks at Scrooge in a panel with no dialogue. And the kids look at them in a panel with no dialogue.
Honker looks a little off in that one, too.
Yeah, a little bit. And then Darkwing finally gets to say, let's get dangerous. But once again, there is no intro in this issue. All right, so Tiffany, care to tell us what they're doing to Gizmo Duck in the next scene?
They are realizing the effects of the slime, and he has 2 giant, like, laser guns coming out of his chest that they're setting him up for like a big fight.
They're telling him that the slime is still a part of the Gizmo suit, and the slime can read the suit, which is why it played Magica's plans. Bull. I don't buy it.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense at all.
Nothing is making sense at this point.
I will say I do kind of like the design of the guns they're doing. They kind of resemble Darkwing's gas gun a bit,
Totally.
especially with the purple coils.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we get some interesting dialogue from Scrooge and Darkwing. Stan, can you paraphrase this as quickly as you can?
So basically, Darkwing's asking Scrooge why he brings the kids along on adventures, saying that Goslin usually just tags along. And Scrooge says he wants to include them because they'll get a better education than anything they'll see in the classroom. But the real reason is he just can't bear to be away from them for so long. And Darkwing says he has a domestic life and a superhero life, and one of my favorite lines of Scrooge in this, he's like, "Don't be daft. You just have a life. Spend it wisely."
Good
Yeah.
comeback from Scrooge.
hmm
I think this might be a little too sentimental from this version of Scrooge, though.
Yeah.
I don't think the DuckTales 87 Scrooge would go into that much detail about how important his family is. I mean, he did in the show, but this is a lot coming from him. To be honest, 6, 7 years before the fact, this feels a lot more like David Tennant's Scrooge.
Yep.
Like, I can see this in an episode of DuckTales 2017 that we never got, having this conversation with that version of Darkwing.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite work for me here, but I do appreciate the sentiment. This is the one time the two of them have a conversation that I actually kind of buy. Because they're not being dicks to each other, that's why.
Yeah.
So we cut to outside in Duckburg. Some construction workers are trying to put the city back together. And then all of a sudden, all the villains show up. The mutated Fearsome Four, the mutated Beagle Boys, and Magica, the Phantom Blot, and Ammonia Pine, Cinnamon Teal, and
On weird
Camille
little
Chameleon.
covered scooters.
Yeah, so a whole ton of villains suddenly show up. And the good guys hear on the radio about what's going on. And I do really like Goslin's dialogue here, which is very Goslin. She goes, "What do you think they'll hit first? Toy factory? Greenhouse? Toy factory / greenhouse combo?" Great little nod to Quacker Jack and Bushroot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Scrooge knows where they're going. Guys, where does he expect them to go?
The
The
money bin.
Which, I'll get to it, but it does bother me in this panel where Scrooge says it. There's a big white space to his right where they could have easily drawn it in the background to give readers an idea of what he's talking about. We know what the money bin looks like, but you think everybody does?
Probably not.
So, it's time to get dangerous, guys.
And Gyro grabs Darkwing's gas gun to do something to it.
So outside in Duckburg, this bothers me. Magica pretty much tells the Darkwing villains, "Yeah, you go handle this. We're going to go." So once again, the League of Evil amounts to absolutely nothing.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Why the heck did they come? It looks like she's taken not only the League with her, but the Beagle Boys and the Phantom Blot.
I don't understand why. I don't understand why all these extra characters are even here. But I also don't understand why they couldn't have just all fought them. I don't know.
Yeah.
And once
so
again,
this
the
is-
Fearsome
this is
Four
the
isn't
line-
acting like what, Tiffany?
I was going to say, this is the line that I was going to say that I liked, that I thought was actually funny.
What is it?
The look up in the sky, it's a plane. It's unmistakably clearly a plane.
Nice little Superman reference.
Yeah.
So all the Liquidator, Megavolt, Quacker Jack, Bushroot start attacking the Thunderquack. I do really like that Quacker Jack's weapon is clearly supposed to be a Nerf gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is that even supposed to do?
Well, they probably explode on contact or something.
Yeah.
And I really wouldn't be surprised if Bushroot's vine, because I know Silvani likes Godzilla, I would not be surprised if it was a reference to the movie I told you about last week, Godzilla vs. Biollante. Like,
Yeah.
I really wouldn't be shocked because that's what it looks like exactly. But anyway, so the bad guys are trying to attack the Thunderquack, and Launchpad keeps asking if it's ready yet, and Darkwing's like putting it off, soon, not yet, it's not ready yet. And so then what happens, Stan?
Well, finally, after the Thunderquack takes a few hits, the weapon's ready, and Darkwing tells the Fearsome Four to suck antidote gas, evildoers.
Can I ask what they had to be ready for?
I don't know.
Oh, it sounds like it had to be charged. I'm not sure why.
What had to be charged? It's like a vial of the ink antidote on top of his gas gun. Yep. What does he got to charge?
I don't know, but I do want to mention, did you guys notice how Mr. Banana Brain keeps getting costume changes in this issue?
Well, good for him. Good for him.
Now that I see that, that's hilarious.
But I love that when he does shoot all the villains, he also shoots Banana Brain, who's like up in the air, like all goofy looking.
Yeah.
And the shot works, and the four villains turn back into their usual selves, and disappear from the issue at this point. So everyone's celebrating. They land the Thunderquack. Everybody's happy. Everyone's, happy and partying. I mean, Gizmoduck has done nothing. I don't know why they even bothered giving him that weapon.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the ink starts to take over Duckburg. And this is where I get really annoyed.
I just realized that there's 2 extra wheels on Gizmoduck, too. He's like,
well,
now.
All that stuff is really heavy. I doubt he can stand upright.
Probably.
So the ink starts transforming Duckburg. And this is what really, really grinds my gears. Scrooge screams, "Not my money, not my money." First of all, why is that a problem, Stan?
Well, because he would never say my money, he'd say me money.
Anybody who's even watched a few episodes of DuckTales know that's how Scrooge talks.
Yep.
Like, give me a break.
It's always bless me bagpipes, not me money, curse me kilts. He always uses me.
It's the same thing with Magica. She doesn't talk the way June Foray would have voiced her.
Yep, definitely.
So anyway, Scrooge is outside, clearly outside, screams, "Not my money, not my money." And then in the very next page, he's already inside the money bin. There is no sense of space here. Like, where are they in relation to the bin? How is he suddenly there? Wouldn't it have been great to at least shown us one panel of him running to the money bin?
Yeah.
Just to build drama? I mean, again, the money bin is a very important part of DuckTales and Scrooge as a character. If you're going to attack it, you really have to build up to it. I mean, what episode did you mention, Tiffany, where like they did that perfectly?
Wait, no, that was Stan.
Oh, Stan, what episode were you talking about where they did that perfectly on DuckTales?
The episode with the Terrafermians, where they were these like furry ball creatures that were having earthquake games, and there's this great shot where they cause an earthquake, and Scrooge is running trying to get to the money bin before it collapses from the earthquake, and the streets breaking apart around him, and he's chasing like this jagged crack going there, and it's one of the greatest shots in that episode.
Yeah, the animation's so good in that.
Well, that's TMS for you. And they're chasing it in the limo, like Duckworth's trying to keep up with the crack in the ground.
Yeah, you got all the like background moving too.
And I will reference my favorite, money bin destruction scene. It's the money bin destruction scene to end it all. Obviously, it's the DuckTales movie.
Yes.
Like, that's done so well when Murloc turns the bin into his fortress. And
I was just going to say that evil looking money bin style is pretty similar to some of the art in this too.
It definitely seems like a nod to it. But I just love in the DuckTales movie, he like tries to jump into the bin to just hold his money, and it all turns to stone, and he's like, "Me money," and it's like he's so upset, and the music just works. But I feel like if you're gonna do a scene in the comic where Magic is able to take over the entire bin with her ink. You got to show the money bin before she does it. You have to
Yeah.
show the ink starting to cover the bin. You have to sell it. And it's like this comic is doing a very bad job of selling it. And it bothers me. Like, probably more than it should, but as a 35-year Ducktale fan, I think I have a right to complain.
Yeah.
That's just me. So then, we're almost done with this issue. I'll let you take it home, Tiffany. How does this thing end?
All right. So then you see Gyro commanding them to finally use the giant gun on Gizmo Duck. And it shoots a giant, like, electricity type beam into the sky, and it causes a portal to open up. And
we finally do see the bin, but by now it's covered in ink, and you have no idea what it even is.
Yeah. Unless you know.
Unless you know, yeah.
And then we get the big reveal of two characters in the portal, which are Negaduck and Morgana.
Which, I'll be honest, it is a pretty big holy crap moment.
Yeah.
Like, I think the ink looking a bit like Negaduck is a really good foreshadowing, but it's still a great reveal.
It's only kind of like that, though, because it's pretty subtle, the ink.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But now everything makes sense about what happened in the Campaign Carnage story arc. Now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because where did the ink come from? Obviously, it was Negaduck after Paddywhack turned him into particles. It's a cool ending. It doesn't make up for everything else in this issue. But okay, so let's just jump into our ratings, because I get the impression the three of us don't like this one very much. I'm going to throw it to Stan for his rating first.
So I think this might be my lowest rated issue of Dangerous Currency. I'm going with a 1.5.
All right. General thoughts?
So I feel like this is the one that just trips and falls almost completely flat on its face. There's not much humor. The dialogue is horrible. The plot holes are awful. The reasons they give for things are stupid. There's a couple good moments, but not enough to save this comic.
Tiff?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it the same 1.5. I think that the exposition is like really, really lazy. I hate that part where it's the Gizmo Duck suit explaining, like somehow recording like Magica's plan, and even
Stupid.
That's already dumb, but then the way that it's explained is just really sloppy and lazy. And yeah, I hate that there's not enough Ducktales. It's like this is the one where they actually go to Duckburg, but then you like barely get any Duckburg. So yeah.
Agreed. I'm also going to give it the 1.5. So we're across the board. We feel the same way about this one, don't we? At this point, the only thing holding this together is the art, and I guess the sheer novelty of it, which I think at this point, that's not even a factor anymore. I think the story is dumb. There's too much exposition. It's all forced. A lot of like very convenient ideas like, oh yeah, Mama Crackshell's insults neutralize the ink. Boy, that's convenient. Like it's dumb. It reads like fan fiction. Like by someone
bad fan fiction.
Bad fan fiction. And again, the DuckTales stuff gets a very short shrift. It really does. Just at least one drawing of the money bin in this issue. That's all I asked for, really. And just, I feel like DuckTales is very disrespected. Just the way Scrooge is characterized, and the nephews don't feel like themselves, and Webby's totally useless. Like
was a lot of times on DuckTales, though.
Yeah, and a lot of the other stuff, like the League of Evil, 3 issues in, these characters have done nothing. Like, why is the Phantom Blot there? It's like nothing makes sense. You see why Disney does not consider this canon.
Yeah.
And you see why Sparrow and Silvani don't like it. Like I don't blame them at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, 1.5 right across the board. So that's out of the way. How about we do one of the little mini episode reviews, Tiff?
All right. So again, wanting to relate it towards my feelings of an episode.
Oh no.
That I don't like very much, that I didn't even like as a kid, and that's Apes of Wrath.
Oh. Oh. Oh man, Apes of Wrath. Oh. Oh,
Yeah.
I know Will hates that one.
Yeah, I just think it's weird because I think like most Darkwing stories, even like the ones that aren't that great, if you like read them as like a TV guide description or something, they would sound pretty good. And I think that's true for Apes of Wrath too, where it's kind of cool, just the concept, but it's just done so badly to me. It's like I think it might be my least favorite.
I mean, Darkwing in the jungle fighting apes.
Yeah.
It sounds fun.
Yeah, totally. And the Jane Goodall references. So yeah, that the beginning of it, same thing as in this comic book. It's like the cheapest, laziest exposition ever. It's like the worst in the show, the way that they like explain what's going on in that first scene.
Especially because when it aired, see, I'm always very wedded to like how the show aired. When it aired, no one knew what Shush even was. So he names dropped them. And it's like, wait, what's Shush now? But I blame that on like the syndication, the channel who programmed these. I don't blame it on the writers, but still.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, Tiffany, before I ask Stan?
Yeah, Trenchard is like the worst, most annoying villain.
Yeah.
I usually like Charlie Adler, but I hate his voice for Trenchard so much.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
And I feel, I don't know, I feel like a lot of the jokes didn't hit, even though it's like they could have very easily, like the repeating coconut thing, I feel like could have been funny, but it wasn't ever done in a funny way. Like none of the jokes really hit. And then that primate punch, it's like, I don't get it. Is it supposed to be alcohol? He has a reaction to it, but they don't explain if it's spicy or if it's booze. There's just so many jokes that are like just weird.
Yeah. How about you, Stan? Opinions on Apes of Wrath?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that one. I was never a big fan of Trenchard, though. I did recently say that he actually would have made a decent villain in something else I looked at.
What was that?
Joe?
You'll find out in due time.
Okay, that's fine.
But the story just didn't work that well for me. There weren't a lot of good jokes in it, and Trenchard was annoying.
Yeah.
Okay. So my own thoughts mirror yours. It's not a good episode. I don't like Trenchard. Again, like Tiffany said, I like Charlie Adler a lot. I mean, the man was Buster Bunny. The man owned Cow and Chicken. But this one particular voice doesn't work with this character. I don't like him. I don't know if he's my least favorite villain because the King and Icy Vanderchill are really up there. And Lilliput too. But I think he might be at the top of my list of least favorite villains.
I think it's a battle for me between him and Lilliput, probably.
But at least Lilliput is weird.
Yeah.
At least he's weird with like the buck teeth and just a funny Frank Welker voice. But anyway, the Dr. Brute thing doesn't do anything for me. And most of the middle of the episode is just Darkwing fighting gorillas, and it's very like they're in the jungle, they fight gorillas, and they find Trenchard, but then they're back in the jungle again, and there's more stupid gorilla stuff, and there's more coconuts, and it's so meandering.
Yeah.
It could have been worse, though. They could have added Comet Guy to the mix.
Well, that would have been. And it's so early in the show that even the animation from Sun Wu can't save it at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's visually bland.
Well, I think the backgrounds are better than the last one we reviewed, Paradox. So
Well, that's because it's very atmospheric. I'll give the backgrounds this. But then you get like the weirdest out of left field joke when Darkwing puts on the pump sneakers.
oh yeah, I was gonna mention that. It's so dated. There aren't that many things that are like dated, I think, in Darkwing Duck, but that is like ridiculous.
And if you're gonna do a stupid joke about the pump sneakers, lead it to something. Like, how about one of the gorillas pops it, or it has a hole and he flies away when the shoes deflate? Nothing actually happens.
Yeah.
He pumps them and then just runs into one of the gorillas, and it's not even spoken of. Like, if you're gonna reference something like that, please do something with it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it seems like such a non sequitur.
Yeah, totally. It's like that, and then MC Hammer comic guy, and I don't know. There's not that many super 90s references in Darkwing.
Thank God. Thank God. There was an Aladdin episode where they magically became a band, and Iago's walking around going, "Oh, it's hammer time," as Aladdin plays the piano with his foot. I mean, if Darkwing did that, it'd be dumb, but I'd say, hey, it's Darkwing Duck. But you don't do that on Aladdin.
That's weird.
It's really weird.
Keep in mind that Aladdin was a show that had a lot of odd humor like that. Like, didn't the genie turn into Darkwing once?
And Scrooge and Bonkers. He turned into a bunch of different characters.
Well, if the genie did something like that, it wouldn't be as weird.
That's true. But Aladdin playing a piano with his feet, that's a little much. But anyway, yeah, so I don't like the episode. And I feel bad saying that because it's one of Dev Ross's episodes, but they can't all be winners.
Well, I mean, like I was saying, the story, I don't have any problem with the story at all. I just think it was
The specifics.
Yeah.
And I'll give it one thing that I can't really picture the opening of Darkwing Duck without the scenes from that episode.
Oh, yeah.
Totally. Oh yeah.
Lots of intro scenes.
I will say I will give the animation points for the one bit where he does this crazy Tex Avery take when he finds out he still has the bomb.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's really good.
Oh.
But
this is the one thing I was going to say about the episode too. So I actually, back in the 90s, had an opportunity to get the coveted Darkwing item, which was an animation cell. But the only one that they had was from, I was a kid, obviously, my dad, and the only one they had was from Apes of Wrath. And I just said, is there any way it could be from another episode? It could be from another episode, and there wasn't any, so I missed my chance, but it was specifically because it was from this episode.
A cell of Darkwing Launchpad and Trench Rot tends to pop up on eBay once in a blue moon, but I don't want that.
Right? I know.
Honestly, if I could have an animation cell, it would be of Negaduck.
Any villain would be great.
Yeah.
But like the other animation cell I see a lot is the cells of Darkwing with a giant presence, which doesn't correspond to any episode unless it's from Mutancy on the Bouncy when Cementhead's giving him all those presents, but it doesn't correspond to any shot in the episode. But those are all over eBay.
Yeah, I feel like I would rather have a Tuscanini cell than an Apes of Wrath one.
Yeah. But, early episode, at least it wasn't later in the run where it's a lot less forgivable.
Yeah.
All right, so next week we have the very final issue in our Boom Darkwing discussion. It's Darkwing Duck number 18, which is Dangerous Currency Part 4. We see how all of this wraps up. Hopefully it'll be better than this one was, but I have my doubts, if I recall correctly. So until then, we are the St. Canard Files, a Darkwing Duck podcast. You can find us on all podcast apps, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, iTunes. I think we're back on Facebook. I think the Facebook podcast app didn't actually die because the most recent episode showed up there. So, hey, whatever. iHeartRadio, Pandora, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, or head over to YouTube and watch us there. Stan, do you have anything you want to plug, or how can the fans find you?
Oh, I'll mention my 2 YouTube channels again, DMC Jedi Man and DMC Jedi Man Gaming.
Nice.
Come check them out. They're a lot of fun. I try and put up a lot of different content.
I love your channels.
I
And
appreciate
Tiffany,
that.
oh, yeah, it's cool, Stan. I'm glad you were able to do all that stuff. And Tiffany, how can the fans find you?
I've got my YouTube as well at Radioactiffany and at CarneyTube and on Instagram at Tiffany Silver Braun and at Regurgitating Gertie. And yeah, that's it.
And before we go, I want to let you guys know a little bit of secret here. The whole plan, the Synchronon file is the plan from the very beginning, okay? Step 1, create the podcast. Step 2, Step 3, profit. I'm not quite sure what Step 2 is. I'll let you know when I figure it out. The Underpants Gnomes are still working on that. So until next week, everyone stay dangerous and have a good day. Take care.
Bye.
Stay dangerous, everyone.
Later.